From my research, we found that sound and lighting are the two hardest aspects to get right in the interviewing part of our documentary. Do you have any advice for this?
Absolutely, it all depends on your location. So if you can film in a room that doesn't have a lot of empty space and it doesn't have a lot of tiled flooring or walls and ceilings, which is really hard to do in this building because it's very old and everything's made of stone and concrete, then you can eliminate the echoey ambient sound of the voice that you don't want. So when you're recording an interview, you really want kind of as crisp a sound as possible. Ideally you would record the audio in a studio with carpeted walls and all kinds of acoustic sound treatment, but when you don't have access to stuff like that, you just got to think about your location. So place them somewhere relatively small. The more kind of fabrics that are around in the room, the better quality of sound you use. And then in terms of the equipment that you use, you really need to think about that. So you could use, we've got Rode NTG2 shotgun mics. You could use those into an H4n, you get a really nice crisp sound. Think about which angle you place it. If you point it upwards and the ceiling is, a solid surface, then you might get a bit of echo. If you can point it from above, then any sound that hits the carpet isn't then going to reverberate into the microphone and give you a bad quality of sound. You could even use the microphones that are built into the H4n, they're pretty good standards. I'd recommend putting a pop shield on top of that just to make sure, and for something like that you need to get as kind of close to your subject as possible, ideally without it being in the shot. Because you're doing a documentary type thing, you could use lapel mics. It doesn't matter if they're on display if it's a documentary, it does matter if it's anything else. You want to try and hide them. But the lapel mic into an H4n will give you a really good quality of sound. So in terms of sound, I'd recommend try and use a lapel if you can. If you can't, you haven't got access to it for whatever reason, use a shotgun mic. If you can't use that, then use just the H4n with the microphones on the front. In terms of lighting, so where I'm sat right now, I've got backlighting, which can be good so long as I've got fill lighting. It can make for a really interesting shot. I don't know what it looks like on this, but so ideally set them somewhere that you can put a soft light onto their face, and you want to try and have that at eye level. If you do it from above or below, then it can create shadows in their eyes and it can make them look a little bit mysterious or unusual or scary or whatever. So try and make them, ideally, look as friendly as possible, no matter what you're talking about, really. If you were recording someone who wants to be hidden for whatever reason, so they might not want to show their face for whatever they're talking about, they might be talking about something sensitive and personal and they don't want people to know who it is who's giving that information, then think about a silhouetted shot. You can then still show the outline. You can cover up the voice if you need to, but you show that you're actually interviewing a real person. So the most important thing is to have a soft light on their face. Interviewing techniques, so what you want to think about is always have camera at eye level, like this, so this is perfect. Ideally, I would film with two cameras. I'd usually have one static shot. I'd think about my rule of thirds. Because I'm facing directly into the camera, it doesn't matter so much if I'm central, but usually I would put the subject on the left or the right third. Even if I was on the left third facing that way, talking to you over there, at 45-degree angle, then that adds a nice element to it. You can also, with the second camera, get shots of, I gesture quite a lot, get shots of my hands moving around, and you can cut to those. You can use a audio synchronization to put those, so keep them both a constant video, use audio synchronization to match them up, and then you can cut to the actual hand movements that were being done when they're interviewing. Make sure you don't overdo that because it can look awful. Even some out of focus shots from behind interesting objects that are in the room. Even sometimes I take some things around with me, some items that are kind of relevant, maybe books that are about the subject, or if we're talking about technology, I might have cameras or tablets or something like that I can just kind of subtly show very quickly as you're doing the interview. It can be very boring to keep one static shot on the interviewee. Also, top tip, make sure they don't sit on a swingy chair. The reason I sat on this chair is because if I sat on this chair, I would be sitting here going like this the whole time, rocking back and forth. Always make sure they don't sit on a swingy chair. Okay?